Hello everyone, welcome to the first episode of KTH AI Society podcast. I'm Shruti. I'm a member of the education team here in the society, and I'm host of these episodes. So our goal is to introduce AI in different interesting fields to the students in a way that it is easy to understand and impactful. We felt in today's time it is important that people who are not familiar with computer science and engineering should also have an idea about artificial intelligence and how it is affecting technical growth and how it's going to change human life in the future. So today I have our team members with us, Ishak, the chairman of our society, machine learning master students in KTH, Nathan, head of education team in our society, machine learning master students at KTH, and Kiran is doing PhD at KTH, and he is also an education team member.
So maybe I can, just as an interesting point, I think, this is the AI Society podcast, and I think a lot of people don't recognize how fundamental natural language processing has been to artificial intelligence. I mean, if you think about it from like an intelligence standpoint, what separates humans from other animals? It's our ability to really be able to relay thoughts effectively, to be able to, deal with abstract concepts in this sort of way. And it's one of the reasons why, you look at the new models which are coming out now in deep learning, BERT's GPT-2, GPT-3, that are producing this seemingly intelligent text. And one of the reasons why we spend so much time on that is because it's one of our fundamental tests for intelligence to be able to actually produce natural language. And it's really fundamental to AI. So even in other domains of AI now, we see the same type of approaches which were used for language are starting to be used for other domains. The same types of models are starting to be used even in computer vision, which is really interesting.
So as you just talked about the natural language processing research is going on, maybe you can share your experience or knowledge, whatever you know, right now, which researches are going on in the field of natural language processing.
Right. So I think this is a very important question as to some relevant areas in NLP research. And I think NLP is the most exciting subsection of AI because in the last 10 years, we have seen we have almost integrated ourselves with some smart devices, and internet has reached almost all parts of the world. But there are still some parts where there is some research going on if how this internet could be accessed. However, in terms of because there is so much unstructured data, and equally there are many NLP research ongoing NLP research. I think it's equally important to see the fact of how do we interpret the results that come out of these complex models, and also understand how do they generate whatever outputs they're able to generate. So with the help of this interpretation as a main research topic for NLP models, I think we will be able to build even better models. And the next one I feel is the evaluation metrics, because if you look at some recent research in NLP, you always will come across some new metric every now and then. And so I'm really curious myself that which metric will really stick for the longest and also is reliable for us as a community, because you can definitely look at some recent metrics like BERT score or some checklist, which basically humans are good at solving these tasks, but the model is not. I think that's another topic to look at. And I think the last one I feel is the scalability, because when these NLP models are deployed for some industries, the most important thing is we need to look at how scalable these models are. For that, I think we should focus on increasing the efficiency, and also how can we efficiently use some pre-trained models that already involves, for example, GPT-3 has billions of parameters. So how can we efficiently use these pre-trained models so that we need to use much lesser parameters. Yeah, these are some like top fields I think NLP research should be carried out. And obviously there are many more research fields. Maybe anybody else can add to my answer.
Yeah, I would like to ask Nathan next.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting you mentioned metrics, Karen, because it's really hard actually to evaluate natural language models. Of course, it's easy to see how good are they at predicting words, how good are they at particular tasks. But when we're moving towards GPT-3 or GPT-2, these are they're not really pre-trained for any task other than to sort of generate language. Like they're more built for their internal understanding of language. And oftentimes it produces text which is unrecognizable from like actual text. But then the question is, can we actually determine if this model is resembling any form of actual intelligence? Is it just taking information from the text that it's read and in some smart way compiling it for us? Or does it have any actual understanding of what it's doing? Now, I'll tell an interesting story. I remember my professor back in the Netherlands, I think he mentioned this at one point, which is that it's very easy to trick people to believe something is intelligent. So I think we all know the Turing test. It's a test where you have a robot or some sort of AI on one side and a human on another side. And then the idea is that a human tries to determine if what they're speaking to is a robot or a human. And if the person can't determine between robot or person, then we can conclude that the robot is intelligent because the person can't tell the difference between it. The problem was, I think even in the 90s or maybe early 2000s, there were simple chatbots going around online that would pass Turing tests, simply because they would ask questions like to people like, repeating information back to them, which they had, extracted from text before. And there were little tricks being used in the community, like a chatbot which pretended it was a bad English speaker, so from like another country, so people would excuse particular grammatical mistakes in it. So that's not really connected to GPT-3, but it goes to show how easy it is to sort of trick people into thinking that language models are actually intelligent. Now at GPT-3, of course, it's much stronger than those original chatbots from the 90s and 2000s, but we still ask ourselves the questions like, is this model actually understanding something? You have applications popping up now where a transformer network is producing text about philosophy, and it's providing like insightful thoughts into what's actually into like a particular field, which you would think a language model should never be able to do without really understanding what it's thinking about. So it's just something that popped into my head, Karen, when you mentioned metrics, that like, how are we actually going to be able to determine if these language models are acting intelligently, quite in the way that we view, quite in the way that we perceive intelligent, something to actually be intelligent? Like, are they intelligent? I think this is, something that the research is struggling quite dramatically with at the moment.
I just yeah. Sorry, you can just say.
Yeah, I think to some extent people confuse this problem as being technological purely, but I would say it's rather a philosophical problem. Like, what do we mean by an intelligent being or agent? And it's a really interesting question. And I know the Turing test is a very kind of practical model where you just say if it looks intelligent, it is intelligent. Whereas later, thinkers like John Searle would put up the Chinese room argument that says, like, if you have a person, locked in a room that slips notes in perfect Chinese, if he just follows a big book of references on how to write Chinese characters, he doesn't actually have any understanding of Chinese. But to the outside observer, he knows Chinese perfectly, as he's able to perfectly answer every question, unaware to himself. And I think that kind of goes at the issue about calling a system intelligent to begin with. Nathan, for example, he says so many brilliant things all the time, and he might just be a robot, for all I know. But to some extent, I'm going to trust that Nathan is, an intelligent being. And I do believe so. And to some extent, to me, I can only know, from my own perspective. And it's this mind-body theorem of philosophy that I think is actually, an area that's going to give us better answers than, higher testing performance on language models. And also thinking about, GPT-3, these are like generative models, right? So they're outputting, sentences and they're basically trying to say something. And I think that's very different from, say, a discriminative model where you're really just trying to separate muffins from chihuahuas, right? So I think to some extent, better, more performant AI models isn't really going to solve these problems of intelligence for us. And so I think to some extent, academia is really important to make sure we truly understand systems better, but also I think the practice of building, say, products or services that help people and aid people in their lives is really where AI can shine. So for example, when you write a message in Gmail nowadays, it suggests, the end of your sentences. And it probably gets this wrong half of the time, but it's fine because we have human intelligence to complement that. And it's this, interaction. And humans also, we aren't islands. I mean, intelligence is far more than just our own heads, right? It's to begin with, hundred thousands of years of evolution, but we're complex. We live in societies. We have at least around 20 years behind of us of impressions of the senses, and it's like trying to build a systems like that out of transistors is not viable, and perhaps not even that desirable, to some extent. So I think AI, like it's great to have more intelligent and more performant models for sure, but I think that's that's not going to be the end to the central problem of AI systems not being truly intelligent.
So talking about technical growth, as you mentioned, so like for my experience also, when I grew up in my school, I didn't know about artificial intelligence at all. Like there was no internet, nothing was there. So I used internet first time when I was in class 12, I guess, just before my bachelor's. So it's amazing how things are changing, like a few years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, for how we used to live. It's changing right now, like it's completely different how we are living right now. And it changes in the future also. So any thoughts about how future is going to look like, and it will be better if you can talk a little bit more about how like different companies are like walking towards a better future, like technical revolution for the future. For example, like 10 years from now, I'm sure it will be quite different from now. Yeah, I can start it, Isak.
Sorry, can I start?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, well, so I don't know if this addresses your questions really, but it's great to talk about the future, but just looking back the last maybe 20 years, if you look at search engines, for example, Google is the big name there, and they really, I think Google search is like a sourdough that's just been refed, by billions of searches. I don't know how many each day. And if you try to search with a smaller search engine, you won't get the same as accurate search results. And really, a search engine is quite simple at its core, but once you build it up and nurture it with a lot of users, it actually ends up, the search recommendations that make sense rise, right? So I think looking at that and comparing different search engines is something that you can do at home really easy and really get a grasp of the kind of advantage they have just by years and years of human input of new data, right? And that richness really, I think is crucial to build systems that aren't just, research papers and graphs and that, but actually continuously receive that aid from human intelligence that the intelligent systems really thrive off of.
Yeah. In thirds, Kiran?
Yeah, I think this is a very important question because as we know that whatever we do today is going to build the foundation for
Tomorrow.
world we will see in few decades, right? So be it NLP or in general AI, I think personally I feel so, because I've been getting many cliche questions every now and then in meetups, that is AI going to take over? Are we is our end is imminent, and so on. So I think rather the question is, how well can we seamlessly integrate with these new technologies that we research today, be it the electronics, the appliances, or the cars. And I think NLP is almost like everywhere, right? There are many startups coming up with some back office supports, or I mean, I'm pretty sure we must have seen some automated answering machines which are giving us options, choose A or B, and then we say A, then the answering machine says so this is all being generated through NLP, and it's very exciting to be a part of this. But also it's very important to understand that this all is going to take significant efforts and time from the research community, and also the entrepreneurs have a equally important responsibility to put it all together in a most usable way, rather than coming up with some technologies which will be very addictive. And I'm not sure if I should list any example, but then there are some addictive technologies which are going in a different direction. So it's a responsibility for all of us to see and to be a part of this wonderful future that is integrated with AI.
I think we are already running out of time, and Kiran also have a meeting. Also email us or like comment in our YouTube channel, maybe.
Yeah, please. I mean, you can email us contact@KTHAIS.com and just tell us if you liked it or not. All right. So if you have any ideas, we're trying this format, so it's a bit of a start, but happy to hear what you listen to.
Yeah, it's an initial step for a lot of us to make a better awareness about AI in general. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed it.
Thanks, Ruth.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.